Okay, now, as previously mentioned, I spent the weekend watching the Receiver series on Netflix. Hadn't had time to do it before. I wanted to watch it as soon as it came out, but I wanted to have a chance to really digest it. So, what I did, multitask, the Receiver series on one computer and reading the never ending Sunday Ticket 2,506 page transcript on the other. Got through all 8 episodes of the Receiver series, and I got some thoughts about it. First of all, I didn't like it as much as I liked the quarterback series. I think 5 is too many. It dilutes the storylines. It's harder to get to know the people you want to get to know. I wanted to hear more from Amon-Ra St. Brown's dad. I love his dad. He's got that great combination of old school, new school. He was a Mr. Universe, trained those kids when they were young, has some kind of kooky ideas like Coke gives you energy and Gatorade doesn't. I don't know. I'm sure there are other options that give you more energy than Coke, but he's a firm believer in drinking a Coke. Maybe looking for a Coke sponsorship. Coke may want to look into this, but I wanted more from that family. And, just the idea that mother speaks German and Amon-Ra, I think, knows English, French, and German, and he was doing some interviews in German. I just feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown and his family far more compelling and interesting. No disrespect to anybody else, but I wanted more there. I felt like we hardly got anything about Deebo Samuel. I just feel like that was just like we check the box from time to time. Oh, well, we got to have a Deebo scene. Oh, check the box. There wasn't a whole lot of depth there. And maybe he didn't want a whole lot of depth. I don't know. Justin Jefferson, I wanted more from him. Now, the problem is he was injured. So what can you really do? But it felt like there was a lot of ground there to maybe see how he was dealing with those extended absences from practices and games. What's he doing? How does he process that mentally when he wants to play, when he wants to counter any narratives that might be out there that he was deliberately not practicing and playing because he didn't have a contract, and he would have been back and practicing and playing if he did have a contract. And if he did that, I was a firm supporter of it because he had no security. He didn't have the long-term contract. You come back with a hamstring injury before it's 100% and you aggravate it and you're done for the rest of the year and it lingers into the offseason and it maybe affects your preparation for next year. That's a risk you'll take if you've got your contract. It's not a risk you should take if you don't. I wanted a little bit more of that. I'll say this, though, some specific things that I noticed. Amon-Ra St. Brown had the oblique injury that happened in week 3 on a Sunday against the Falcons. He talked about the pain, 8 or 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, the pain he was feeling when he was running in practice that week, short week, in advance of Thursday night game, week 4 against the Packers. It's one of the reasons why many don't like short week football. The NFL always focuses on one statistic to justify short week football. The rate of injury from Sunday to Sunday is the same as the rate of injury from Sunday to Thursday. In other words, the same number of injuries happen when you play on a Sunday after playing the prior Sunday as when you play on a Thursday after playing the prior Sunday. That overlooks a lot of factors, such as getting a guy ready to play with only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday between games. And with Amon-Ra St. Brown, it was clear he was injured. He had an oblique injury, and the pain he was feeling was 8 or 9. He said that. So I was curious. I went back and looked at the injury reports from last year. Week 4, Packers. No Amon-Ra St. Brown. He wasn't even mentioned. And, the response is, well, he fully participated in practice. Okay, fine. But he's still injured. He's still injured. We see guys get designated with injury and full participation, easy for him to say, in practice all the time. It'd be interesting to see whether or not he had any treatment in the building. Some guys get their treatment out of the building. Some guys just keep their mouths shut and deal with it. But St. Brown made it clear he wasn't missing the game. And he mentioned that he doesn't like to do painkillers, but he will when it's the Packers. And he presumably did. He didn't say that he did, but it was strongly implied that he did. But the bottom line is this, and this is one of the things the NFL needs to be concerned about as it relates to gambling. Inside information, or what they call in the stock trade, material non-public information. We wrote something last week about the adoption of an injury reporting requirement by Bert Bell in 1947. And it was all about making sure that there wasn't inside information on which gamblers were capitalizing. And they were even concerned about, even though it was illegal at the time, they were concerned about the people who were betting because, hey, they see a good price on a game. They don't know that the starting quarterback isn't going to play because he's injured, because there's no requirement at the time to identify injuries. You just show up for the game and, hey, where's the starting quarterback? He's not playing. Why not? He's just not playing. Let's go play. He's not playing. There will be further updates? Never, because we're not required to say anything. So that's been around for a long time. What's hanging around now is the reality that the injury reporting system is flawed, as evidenced by the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown was injured and the Lions didn't put him on the injury report for the Thursday night game at Green Bay. And this isn't a knock on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know if players prefer to not be listed as injured or to be listed as injured. I heard different things about it. Sometimes they don't want teams to know that there's a body part that should have a bullseye on it. Other times, players want people to know that there's an injury because that helps people understand why the guy might not be playing at the highest possible level that we've seen in the past. Oh, he's got a crack in his hip. I think it was Antonio Cromartie that had that at one point, and the team downplayed it or didn't disclose it. And there was tension because I'm not playing well. I got a crack in my pelvis. So bottom line is, and I'm not, look, he's a narc. No, I'm just a realist. I'm a pragmatist. We've seen multiple examples of gambling scandals already since the Supreme Court opened the floodgates in 2018. And most recently, what did we see from the NBA? Jonte Porter leaving a game early twice at the behest of people to whom he was indebted because they wanted to bet the unders on his prop bets and make a ton of money. Now, that all blew up, but it underscores the fact that there's value in having inside information. So we know this. Amon-Ra St. Brown was injured. The Lions concealed it. His over-under receiving yards for the game against the Packers week 4 last year, a Thursday night game, 72.5. What did he do? 56. So if you knew the truth, somehow, some way, if you knew what was actually going on, and you told somebody about it, and they told somebody about it, and word gets around, and somebody realizes, hey, there's a lot of money to be made here, betting the under. Let's bet the under. This guy's messed up. He's got an oblique injury. Pain is 8 or 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's not listed on the injury report. Now, look, did Vegas know, and did the 72.5 reflect that they knew? But here's what happens. You see Amon-Ra St. Brown and 72.5. Hey, that's a pretty good deal. I'll bet the over. I don't know he's injured. That's exactly what Burt Bell was talking about in 1947. You don't want people to look at that and say, hey, that's a pretty good deal. Oh, he'll easily go over 72.5. Oh, shit, he didn't. Oh, he was injured and they didn't tell me. This is something the NFL needs to be concerned about. Because, and I was on with Pat McAfee and crew on Friday, and we were talking about one of my books, and there's one in the hopper that is a cautionary tale for the NFL about gambling and the mob, and tries to envision a way that the shit can hit the fan. And they're like, oh, don't do it. No, don't do that. Don't do that, because then it'll happen and you will have been right. It's like, I'd rather do it, get it out there, and have somebody at 345 Park Avenue say, this is an example of what could go wrong if we don't have more proactive rules, and if we don't take more seriously the rules on the books that we currently have. I asked the league for any comment about the Amon-Ra St. Brown injury that wasn't disclosed by the Lions. They said no comment, which is different from they complied. I've learned that, it used to be what the NFL would say is the matter's under review. A lot of times now, the first line is no comment until it takes on enough of a life that they have to comment. And then when they comment, they'll say the matter's under review. So I predict what will happen here. They've told me no comment. I'm the first one to ask, I assume. Others might ask, and at a certain point, it reaches a critical mass. And this is a PR game. And I'm not saying it in a pejorative sense, but that's part of what PR specialists do. At what point do we acknowledge this thing? At what point do we make it a bigger story by saying something other than no comment? I predict at some point they'll say the matter's under review. And I don't know how they can ignore this. And somebody pointed out, oh, there should be a statute of limitations. There isn't one. We learned that in 2009. In 2009, when Brett Favre was getting started with the Vikings, right around this time of year, he was asked a lot of questions about why the prior season went to hell in a handbasket after the Jets. Remember, they were the 1 seed after they beat the Titans on a Thursday night game. And there was talk in 2008 about Jets and Giants possibly hosting the conference championship games the same day. And what would the league do? I remember asking the league about that. What would you do? You got the Jets and Giants possibly hosting conference championship games. You can't do them back to back. What are you going to do? That's how good the Jets were that year. It fell apart. Why did it fall apart? Well, the excuse was, and I mean, it's legitimate, Brett Favre had a partially ruptured biceps tendon that they had never disclosed. So Favre starts talking about it to justify his bad performance down the stretch the prior year, and one thing leads to another, and the Jets and Eric Mangini, who was the coach at the time, was he the coach at the time? Who was the coach at the time? I think it was Mangini. And Mike Tannenbaum, they all got whacked. Yeah, it was Mangini. They all got whacked. They all got fined a year after the fact. So, again, if the NFL cares about plugging all the potential holes that could become serious issues for the league and for the teams and for those of us who care about football and don't want it to be undermined by a scandal. See, why do you hate the NFL? I love the game, and I don't want it to be undermined by this money grab the NFL is making with blinders on about the various ways it could blow up in their face. Right now, the NFL, the league office, and the owners, because the league office is the owners, their approach is, and I've used this before, they're that contestant in the game show in the phone booth full of money, and they're just grabbing it and stuffing it in their pockets when it comes to gambling. And they're not thinking about anything else. All they're doing is grabbing the money and stuffing it in their pockets. And there's other stuff they need to be thinking about because it can hurt the game. It can hurt the game. So, but I'm an asshole for caring about potentially hurting the game. Just ask anyone at 345 Park Avenue. One other thing from the receiver show that I thought was fascinating. I haven't written about this yet, but I'm going to. Because I was curious to see how certain moments of the season would be treated. For example, would there be any mention in the Amon-Ra St. Brown portion of that weird moment at the conclusion of the divisional playoff game against the Buccaneers, where the Lions completely bungled the clock management and the Buccaneers didn't take advantage of it? Like, would that even be a thing? It wasn't. But here's what was a thing. Because it was unavoidable. Because it was the game between the Lions and the 49ers the following week, the NFC Championship game. The Lions leading 24-7 at the half. And what happens? Second half. And see, you have the perspective of both sides here because Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you had 2 49ers, 1 Lion for this pivotal moment where everything turns around. First drive, 49ers go down the field, kick the field goal, 24-10. Second drive, Lions move down the field. What happened? 4th and 2. They opt not to kick the 46-yard field goal. And look, it all comes down to the editing. There may have been other stuff that could have been used that wasn't used, but in the stands, Amon-Ra St. Brown's brother, they need to kick it. Amon-Ra St. Brown's father, they need to take the points. And, you know, there's been so much pushback because, well, that's how Dan Campbell does it. Kneecap biting and going for 2. We go for 2. That's what we do. That's who we are. There's a point where, and we argued this at the time, you got to set that aside and you got to be strategic. Hey, they scored 3 points on their first drive to make it a 2-score game. We could take 3 points here and make it a 3-score game with half of the third quarter gone. That's when you really start, if you're the 49ers, you really start getting tight. And that may be the moment where Brock Purdy squeezes the ball a little harder than he should, makes a bad throw, makes a bad read, interception, and now it's a 4-score game. So we'll never know, but that's why you take the points. And also, the reaction from Deebo Samuel. You know, it's a, as George Costanza would say, a vitamin B12 shot. It's like eating fresh mango. He was ready to go. It energizes the team that spent halftime thinking, we're done. This is over. Oh, God, this is awful. They come out, they score some points, they start to feel a little bit better. And now the opposing team leaves the door open. And you see that lift that it gives the 49ers. And what happened? We know what happened. This is why I like analytics for certain things, but for other things, I abhor analytics. ABHOR. I want to make sure that I'm clear here. I hate analytics because it ignores the very real human emotions that flow in the midst of competition. And I'd like to think we've all been there. You know, an example I'll use from time to time is when you're playing your big brother in ping pong and you think you're finally going to beat him after all these years of trying, and you become very aware of it and you freak out, and there it goes. And big brother gets a point here, point there. Before you know it, big brother kicks your ass. That momentum and emotion and just human reaction is real. It's very real. And there's no formula. We factor that in. Bullshit. There's no formula for the human emotion that kicks in those moments. And we saw it from Deebo Samuel and the 49ers when the Lions left the door open by not doing what they should have done, take the points and go up by 3 scores. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.